So my name is Lindy Berg. I'm the NDSU Extension Agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources for Towner County, so I'm out of Can-Do. And today I'm going to be talking about photography. So I'm hoping you'll take away something out of this, and maybe there's some good IT phone people in here. I don't claim to be an expert in IT or phones in general, but I have a few tips and tricks that hopefully you'll be able to take away. And so some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and the reason I'm going to bring this up today in this topic is because these are some of the pictures we get from just stakeholders in general, as far as people coming to agents or specialists or other experts when they need help identifying something or diagnosing an issue. And so hopefully some of the things we can talk about today can help you diagnose some of the things maybe yourself on your farms or at home, or maybe let me help you help us with different tips and tricks. And we will go through the phone. There's just a couple settings in the phone that I'm going to go through that hopefully may help you with better quality of pictures. So when you do send them in or send them to an expert, that might help a little bit, as well as looking at the different characteristics that you may need to know before sending it in. And so a lot of the things we get, for example, is this is one ID that was sent to me. And sometimes I'll be gone out of the office for a day and come back and there's like 3 samples on my desk. And a couple of them might be like super dried out or almost dead. And they're a little hard to ID in that setting, because there's a lot of different characteristics, especially grasses, little details that sometimes determine one from another that make it really difficult. So sometimes, and this is the only thing I might get. And so this is just another example of one picture I got that happens all the time. We get one picture that, and then they say, what's wrong with my tree? And it's really hard to diagnose when we're missing about 90% of the information. And so I'm gonna respond with a lot of questions and probably request about 3 to 5 more pictures. Even though that might be the full, what you might think is a full picture of the tree, really, I'm missing the trunk and the bottom part, which is a big piece of it. A lot of what happens with these trees involve the trunk, and it has a guard on, so that also takes away some of that diagnosis. So some of the things we're going to just talk about today very briefly in the short amount of time we have is location. So I'm going to talk about location in a lot of different contexts, because location is very important. Smartphone settings, like I said, there's just a few things that I can hopefully bring to you with your phone that hopefully won't matter what kind of phone you have. It shouldn't matter. That hopefully we can help with today. And then looking at the big picture of things, as well as the little details and the little characteristics that are important when diagnosing. So location in lots of different contexts. So depending on where it is. And these are some things that I wouldn't probably expect a lot of people to think about when you're like, oh, I'm going to send this picture to my agent. You know, I've been there, done that. I've had a lot, and I've talked to specialists when trying to diagnose. And so I've been through the questions that you need to ask. And so that's really hard to know unless you've already done it. But where it's being found is a big question. And so when I first started as an agent, I might get a certain plant in my office and I'll send it to another specialist, and they'll be like, where did you find it? And so the origin, where did you find it, is a big question. So not only what county are you from, where are you located, but also, was it in a garden? What is the pasture, CRP, cropland? All of those things make a difference and can really help. Symptomology, so looking at the pattern of what's going on, whether it's in the field, the severity, if it's a high spot or low spot, and then just the plant in general. So looking at what kind of stem it has. Does it have flowers? The leaves and the roots, is it fibrous, taproot? All those different things can really help when identifying what some of these are. So this is just an example, not a bad picture, but I still would probably want a few more. I probably want to see a little more of the field, kind of what's going on, just to see exactly what that pattern is, plus another picture just a little bit closer up as well. Okay, so one of the things that some of our specialists talk about are the signs and symptoms. And so I'm going to kind of go through some examples of what these are. I'm not going to give you a quiz, so of what is the sign and what's the symptom, because sometimes that's kind of hard actually to determine which is which. But hopefully you can cognitively think as you if you approach an issue or you need to diagnose something, hopefully you can start thinking about like what are the signs and symptoms that you're seeing, and that may help you diagnose yourself. And so if you think about it as us, like what is a symptom if I'm getting sick? It might be that I'm feeling like achy, so I might have a fever. Maybe the chills or the aches, those are things that might be symptoms. But what are my signs? My signs might be like my rise in temperature or rise in blood pressure, or if you had the chicken pox, that sign is whatever is coming from that infection. So the red bumps, so that's your sign from chicken pox. So in a plant, the plant is going to, however it's reacting to that infection or that disease, that's its symptom. So in this case, so these kernels are shrunken. Okay, so that's your symptom. That's what the plant is saying. This is out of the ordinary. I am not healthy, so this is how I'm going to react. A sign is whatever you can see, kind of that evidence of that disease, bacteria, fungus, whatever the case may be. So that is going to be your mold. Does that make sense? So like a tree might say, you know, I'm not healthy, and you might see discolored needles or leaves. That's kind of the tree's way of saying something is wrong. But then you're going to notice if there's any evidence of a pest or disease. That is the actual evidence of what you're going to find in that tree. So hopefully, again, it kind of helps make you think that if you see something down the road, you can kind of think, what are the signs and symptoms? What is this plant telling me? Why is it reacting this way? And what do you see? So this is a sign. So there's some bacterial ooze there, which you can't really see too much. It's kind of that glossy, but that's the sign on this one. So here's one that it's a symptom of that bleaching wheat spike. So that is the way the plant is saying, okay, this is my reaction to what's going on. But then if you find a pest or something of that sort, that's going to be your sign. So here's another picture of what kind of the life in the day of an agent. So this is the picture that I got this last season. That was it, just one picture. And that happens all the time. What is wrong with my tomato plant? And so I'm like, okay. So I see some yellowing leaves, I see some brown spots, and the only other comment I got was that it's like that on all of them. It's like that on all the plants. I'm like, okay. So can you send me a picture of the full plant? So then I got this one. And I'm like, everything looks still like pretty decent. Can you send me the base of the plant? So then she sent me that one, and I was like, oh, okay, now I'm getting somewhere. So now I can see what she's sending me, what she's saying, and kind of just looking at those signs and symptoms and seeing maybe helping to diagnose what's going on. So if you're thinking about sending any pictures in or just trying to diagnose yourself, try to just kind of look at those different characteristics and what all you should be sending in.
What is this?
This is frog-eye leaf spot. Frog-eye leaf spot. So the other thing is characteristics. So when we look at the big picture, we want to look at the big picture of things as far as the big plant, but we also want to look at the little characteristics as well. And so pigweeds, if you were here earlier, you probably heard Bailey talking about the hairs on pigweeds. And hairs are, in general, for weed ID, very important. But in this case, let's see, it's water hemp and palmer that do not have hairs. This is Powell. Powell does. But the thing here is you need to know where to look. And so it's something you probably wouldn't know unless you learned it somewhere. But it's on the new growth. So if you look up here, you're going to see the white hairs right there. But if you look here, which is a little bit lower instead of up there, you're going to notice that it's smooth. So there's just little characteristics that you need to kind of pay attention to. So here's another one side by side. Here's your kind of your newer growth, and then here's your older. And you can notice there's hairs there and not there. And so it makes a huge difference when we're looking at these plants going, and the specialists, we're dealing with them too, and they're like, are you looking in the right spot? And all these different little characteristics are really important. Okay, so really briefly, going to talk about, I don't know how many of you are super familiar with the photography settings in your phone. And so just a couple things. We're going to look at the format in your phones as well. But this is just an example of some of the things within your format. And so there's something called a tip on some of the phones. And so if you've heard of that before, if you have like a 12 megapixel sensor, that file size is 36 megabytes. What is the biggest annoying thing with your phones other than reception? Your storage, right? Your data, how annoying it is. Like my iCloud or whatever has been full for I don't know how long. And then it's not backed up, right? And then you gotta pay for it. So it's all about your storage and your data. And so JPEG is another one that you'll see in your formats. And JPEG will compress that data down. So this 36 megabyte will turn into 2 megabytes. And the tip is the highest quality, but obviously it's a big file size. Where JPEG will compress it down, so it's still a decent quality photo, and it will be easier to send, and it won't take up quite as much data on your phone. The other thing that you'll notice is the high efficiency format. And so the high efficiency is a lower quality than JPEG. And so if you're just looking for just like normal pictures and you're just taking pictures on a normal day and you don't really care so much, then the high efficiency is just fine. But if you're looking for, and that will save on your memory space as well and your data. But if you're looking for a good compromise, JPEG is a very good compromise between good quality photos and saving on your data. Okay. So if you want to pull out your phones, feel free to. You can also just take a picture of it and do it later if you want. But we're just going to go through a couple of them, and we'll see if everybody can follow along here. So if you go to your settings, and I'll kind of take a minute while you guys find it. If you go to settings and find your camera, so here's your settings, and then if you look at your camera, and it should be with any phone. Any phone should be able to do this. Should be the same. And then once you find camera, you'll go to formats, and that's your last screen. Here's kind of just a photo of the screen. So you'll go to settings. Once you find your camera, then here's your camera. You'll go to formats, and then that's what the format looks like. And then once you're in format, for example, on mine, I have two options. I have that high efficiency or the most compatible. And so you can kind of see what is chosen on your phone. But the high efficiency, that's the one that you may not get the best quality photos, but it'll save on your data. But most compatible, that's your JPEG. So that's the one that I choose to use. It has a little better quality photo, and it still doesn't take up a ton of data on your phone. So that's the one that I would recommend using, especially if you're sending pictures back and forth. Okay. Got that one? Okay, so the next one is back in settings. Back in settings, you're going to look for messages, which this is on mine. This is what it looks like. And then once you find messages, you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom to this low quality image mode. So I think I'm trying to think if mine was on or off in the very beginning. I think it was on.
You go to what now, messages?
Messages, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there should be a low quality image mode. Mine was way at the bottom.
Turn that on.
So here's what you can decide what you want to do. So if it's on and you send messages, it'll be in lower quality. Okay. If you turn it off, then whenever you send messages through texting or whatever, you're going to get a little better picture sent through your message.
Well, why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to go with high quality all the time?
Right. I don't know. Okay. I think it might save a little bit on your data, but I don't know that it really makes that much of a difference. But that's why I turn mine off, is because I want mine to be always that better quality photo. because I don't think it's really doing that much for my phone in general otherwise.
So when you go to that JPEG setting that you can send it to iCloud, your picture is going to be in higher quality pixel.
Right. Yeah.
A little note that mine was off. I just checked.
Yeah.
And the pictures I used that you were in here on the last PowerPoint, those were taken, like all my pictures were taken with my iPhone, so you can see that all like that seamless hairs and stuff.
Yeah, so it'll be a little better higher resolution too.
That means if you do this, then you're going to have to work on your iCloud to make sure the storage is, you're going to have to pay for the storage.
I don't personally. I mean,
delete pictures.
Delete pictures, move them to your computer, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Always buy more storage. 99 cents.
I know, and I refuse to do that. And so if my phone breaks on me, I mean, I will. I did just transfer a bunch of photos to my computer because I worry about it all the time. I'm like, I'm gonna lose pictures if I ever break my phone.
So when you lose pictures, they're gone.
Unless they're backed up to the cloud. But like I did not buy an upgrade for the cloud, and so it's full. And so whatever pictures are not in the cloud beyond that, they're gone. Yeah.
Does it default back to a different setting once you do an update on your phone?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't think it will.
I wouldn't think so, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Yeah. So just a couple other tips. Obviously, focus is a big thing. So sometimes we will get pictures that are blurry, are not in focus, and it's really important for us to help you diagnose or ID anything if things are in focus. And so this stink bug, if I got that picture, I'd be like, it might be a stink bug. I can't tell you what species or anything like that, but focus is really important as far as that goes. Steady, and so I am shaky. I have tremors, runs in my family, and my pictures are always blurry. And so I always have to find a way to steady my hand or steady my phone so I can take a good picture, because I always struggle with that. And so just finding a way to steady also what you're looking at. And so if you're out in the field, it's never windy, but if you have like a stake and you can like tape something to that stake to try and steady it to take a picture, that would be helpful. It's also helpful sometimes to have a comparison of size. And so if you're sending it in and, you know, a lot of times I'll be like, can I just come out and see it? And then I can just see things for myself. But a lot of times people will just send pictures and that's what we get. And so it's kind of helpful sometimes to see what we're comparing it to for size. Exposure. And so this is one. So we have one that's a little underexposed. This one is pretty good, and then overexposed. And so this overexposed one, if I had to choose between this one and that one, I would rather have this one, because I think I can probably get on and Photoshop that enough to get some of that character brought back in. Where if it's overexposed like that, all that character and quality is already pretty much gone, then I'm not going to be able to get that back.
Well, how do you change the exposure like?
So another little fun tip is if you open your camera and you put your finger on, like just put it on there like you're going to take a picture of something, and if you hold your finger down, it will lock it. I think this is AEIF or something like that, but it'll lock it. And it'll be like a square. And on the right of that is a little sun. There'll be a sun there. And you can move that sun up and down, and that will change your exposure. So you can do it within your camera.
If you're in a darker setting or if it's like audio, it really helps to put on.
Yeah. And I can show you at the end too. Okay. I'll show you. Because if you, just pretend like you're taking a picture, especially if you like hold your finger on it, it will lock it. And then there will be a little sun that pops up, and you can move that sun up and down, which will change the exposure. So that is really helpful as well when you're looking at lighting. This is just another example of kind of that exposure of a picture that we received, and I'm like, it's not really the best lighting. So this is another one where I'd probably request another picture with a different exposure, different position, different things like that. Okay, this was another question I had. I think we're doing pretty good. I think this is my last slide. Yeah. Okay, so this is another question I had was, I swear somebody told me one time that if you scroll in, you know, using your finger on your phone, if you scroll into whatever your focal point is, that you're losing quality of your picture. And that's not the case. And so this is just an example of that. So here's like the original picture. And then here's the picture on the iPhone, just by zooming, just using your picture like you normally do with your phone. And then here's another one where they just took the same picture, uploaded it, and used Photoshop, and it's the same thing. And so a lot of times uploading to Photoshop and editing is just a pain. And I don't have time for that most of the time. And so it's just nice to know that whatever quality I'm getting with my phone is the quality that I'm getting. You don't have to use Photoshop, but if you do either one or either or, they're the same. You're gonna get the same quality. Okay, so here's just a picture of that low resolution versus that JPEG. So just kind of side by side. So this one's just kind of a little blurry. It's not as much quality, that lower resolution. And then here's your JPEG. So you're just gonna get a little better quality with that JPEG photo. All right, any questions? Anybody else an expert with this stuff that you want to share anything? Or apps. Apps was the other thing. The only app that I'm aware of is it called Picture This? That's what everybody uses.
For plant ID.
Yes,
Yeah.
for plant ID. There is a disease thing on there too.
Yeah.
But it's an app called Picture This. And it's probably the most used app that I've heard of that people like. That is pretty accurate for the most part, I think.
What was the name of it?
Picture This.
Have you used that one on weeds, like on the, I only use it on ornamental plants.
A lot of the agronomists, I've had a few agronomists that have pulled out that app and used it, so I think they're using it quite frequently. So I think that's kind of a big app. You can pay for another version of it, more versions of that app, but I just use the regular app. But is there any other apps that you guys have used or anything? Okay, I know there's a lot out there, and not all of them work that well, but that's the only common one that I'm aware of.